Well, hi, everybody. There's another Conversations with, and with me is Richard Morco. And my good friend Richard is a writer with the Sturbridge Times. They're going to change that, they tell me.
I think Sturbridge.
Town and Country,
Town
is
and
it?
Country Living, yeah.
And that's down now, where did Paul move to the Cape?
Paul is, I think, in,
Yarmouth, someplace.
yeah.
Because I see the address. I read the paper,
Yeah.
the magazine this week, and there's an announcement that they're going to change the name.
Yeah, so I'm one of the big people that's still in town, or
Oh.
still in the area. No,
Okay.
I'm not one of the big people.
Okay. But anyway, one of the things that's going on is whenever we get together, there's never a need for things to talk about because the government, and as I've said, I was telling people that you and I had a chance meeting about 3 or 4 years, 5 years, whatever it was, at a little Mexican restaurant that was opening in Sturbridge. And I sat at the table, and I made a comment that nobody has ever said a government knows how to run a government, let alone try to run a business. And you looked at me and said, "What did you just say?" And I repeated it. And from that day on,
Why did I say? Why did I say that? Because I knew I was gonna write about that, and what do I call that?
yeah,
What
Vaughn's
do I call
Law.
Vaughn's Law.
And the thing is, and you and I became great friends
Yeah.
over that. And the thing that's amazing is we are never at a loss for something to talk about. We have it came out this morning. We have our state troopers. You thought the E troop was bad? Oh, wait till you hear about the F guys. The F troop over at Logan. They have a new deal or a special deal that if they take their own car to work rather than use the cruiser, they get $40 a day for that. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot of money. However, last year, it came to $3.4 million in additional money that they received. The average trooper at the airport, in addition to his $100,000 salary, received an additional $13,000 for use of his car. And then that begs the question, what about the guys who used the police car and said it was their car? Is there any of that? And of course, nobody has an answer yet. The Globe's working on that. And so it's going to be interesting to see the fallout. And then you sit back and you say, that was last year. Now, we all know that wasn't the first year they've been doing this. So how many years do you go back? And these are the guys that took an oath of office, as the governor said, to uphold the law.
Well, I think there's two words. I don't know if you put them together and make one word, but I think there's two words we need to say here. And I hope the governor's getting to this, and I hope the legislature is too, but I don't have absolute faith. Clean house.
Oh, yeah.
Clean house.
Oh, yeah. It's over.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, you have to look at, now, what you have to understand is every colonel, every major, every captain, and every lieutenant and sergeant at one time in their life was a trooper.
Mm-hmm.
They became a state trooper and they moved up the line. So you have to say, well, wait a minute. Now that they got that little gold star or the gold eagle or the gold bar, they know what's going on and never did a word or say a thing about it. They're complicit in this whole mess, and maybe some of them need to be called on the carpet.
Well, I think they're going to plead the excuse of another sergeant from a sergeant that was in the German army, Schultz.
Yeah.
I see nothing. I see nothing.
That's right.
I saw nothing. I saw nothing.
That's right.
I think that's what they're going to do.
Oh, yeah, they will. And or what we'll have is they'll take the coward way out and they'll retire, so they get their pension and see you later, and...
Well, I hope there's a good district or state. I hope Mara. I don't have much faith in Mara. Please forgive me.
Yeah.
I know I get another 30 days in purgatory for that.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of faith in Mara. But I would hope she would be thinking about criminal charges for anybody who was complicit in this. And they're complicit.
Oh, they are.
And, they'll go after somebody. If they want somebody bad enough, they'll go after them.
Yep.
They'll spend the energy if it's a real enemy of theirs.
Well, I think what's going to happen, I think the basic problem, there's going to be so many of them that are going to have, you think about it, between Troop E and Troop F, there's going to be so many officers who were complicit in this, they're going to have to clean house. You know, where does it end? You know, and you know, we talk about checks and balances. There obviously aren't any when it comes to the state police.
Ultimately, there are very few checks and balances anywhere.
Right.
You're right. Exactly.
Right. And I know way back, it's got to be 20, 25 years ago now, I forget which governor it was. Maybe it was Ed King or maybe even before him, but, you know, maybe.
Sergeant?
Yeah, either Frank Sargent maybe, came up with the Inspector General. And we got that new office, that the Inspector General now was going to be responsible, and the House Oversight Committee. And they were going to work together to check all these things, because we had that scandals back in those days with the MTA and the other issues. Well, we had the IG is still there, and he certainly didn't see anything. He's, you know,
I see nothing.
that's right. And so, as a consequence, you know, you look at the magnitude of it. I mean, if I were the governor right now, I'd be driving home tonight saying to myself, whoa, where do we begin? What do I do next? You know, and even the new commander, you know, Colonel Gilpin, who said, we're going to get to the bottom of this. You start to say to yourself, gee, she was a trooper. Gee, she became a sergeant and a lieutenant and a captain.
She must know something.
She's got to know that something was going on.
Say something. You see something, say something.
Well, I
man.
mean, it's not 3 of them. There was over 200 of them
Yep.
that had these deals that they caught, that the Globe came up with. There was 222 of them or something. And they were from troopers to colonels
Yep.
who had their hands in the cookie jar.
Oh, yeah.
And so you say to yourself, oh, wait a minute. You know, what do you do now? You know, and again, you know, it doesn't end there. You want to talk about the Transit Authority, the MBTA, and you want to go on and on and on and on and on. And it's just, nobody has ever said that a government knows how to run a government, let alone trying to run a business. And the tragedy is, whether it's the town of West Brookfield, the town of Charlton, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the number one business in every single community is the government of that community.
Yep.
They have more people on the employment.
Yep.
They have more pensions. They have more insurance costs. They take in more money and they spend more money than any other business in town. And they're not being run like a business. And that's the and I think to some degree there's been a ray of hope with Governor Charlie Baker, because he came from the business community. And he, at least at the outset, and it's going to be interesting to see what he does with this state police mess, you know, and because he's made inroads in the T, and he started to do some corrective problems because of his business background. And yet, I was talking to a state rep, and I asked him, well, you know, you're a state rep. You pick up the Globe and you go, whoa, what do you think? And this fella happened to be on the Public Safety Committee. Really? What was your first thoughts? Well, he said, I really didn't know what to think. Really? Really? You know, and he wasn't being mean. He said, what do we do about it? I said, well, one thing I would do if I were you, when the budget came up, I'd cut the state police budget in half, because we know that a lot of it is wasted money.
Yeah.
And I said, let's start with that. I said, if their budget this year is $20 million, cut it down to $12 million.
Yeah.
And then they can't do it. I'm telling them there is no overtime.
Right.
Work your shift, go home.
Oh, yeah, they
You know, and he said, well, Dick, that's easier said than done. I said, it shouldn't be. Every state rep, every member of the Public Safety Committee ought to be outraged.
You know, when they say easier said than done, that's of course a smokescreen.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
I mean, going in the water the first time in the freezing water in the summer is easier said than done. As you put your finger,
Yeah.
but you get in the water and it's
Fine, yeah.
So, you know, if we do it, we do it. It gets done.
Yeah.
I would say the odds are not going to be. You know, I'm not a big Baker fan. I'm not anti-Baker, but I think the Boy Scoutism sometimes it gets to me. But I have to feel some pity for him as he goes home at night and says, "What a zoo!"
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember because I had the opportunity to work with Governor Volpe, Governor Sargent, and Governor Dukakis many years ago. And I remember in situations where we'd just be us and we'd be chatting and something would happen. It'd be an expose of the Globe spotlight. Something would come up. And I'd say to either one of the three governors, well, what do you think? He says, well, my first reaction is to cry because I can't believe it. And he says, that's the first thing. Oh my God, what is this person thinking or that department thinking? And he said, and then my second reaction is, what? I'm going to do something about it. And you say, okay, how? Where do you start? Well, you call the commander in, and you let the commander have it. And then the commander said, gee, that's not me, that was Lulu. She was in charge of that department. I didn't. Well, you're the commander. Yeah, but I know, but I can't. I got all these other things I got to work. And he says, now you go ahead and try to find somebody to take the responsibility for what happened, and there are nobody. So now you got to be real careful because you don't want to blame somebody who didn't do anything. And not only that, and then you talk to a Frank Bellotti or a George Fingold, who were some of our better attorneys general. And I remember talking to Frank Bellotti and I remember talking to George Fingold many years ago. And they would both look at me and say, Dick, there's only one problem. You got to be able to prove it in a court of law.
Yes.
And when you get everybody standing up and saying, not I
see nothing.
I see nothing, and you have no witnesses, and all you got is information that there was $3 million, and it was, and then you have this argument. That was an opportunity to cheat. Having said that to you, they didn't do anything wrong. It was allowed. If you took your car, you got $40. Okay? So did they break the law? No. They didn't break the law. Only if they took the cruiser and built it. And he said, now how do you prove it? How do unless I get a movie or a picture of Trooper Smith riding in his cruiser on January 17th, and I pull up the record on January 17th, and he billed us the $40. Now I got proof. Do you think that proof exists? No, it doesn't. And he says, every once in a while you get lucky, and there's a chance video around, and you can catch somebody. But you've seen them on television where they'll chase this guy down the sidewalk, who's supposed to be working that day, and he's home delivering groceries to his house. And he's got amnesia. I've been talking, he's ignoring you. And he's some state executive who's supposed to be working. And he's not at his desk, And when you say, I'm always reminded of the debate between Governor King, who beat Dukakis and then became governor, and then Dukakis running again. And we had worked it and worked it. And Barry Locke was the Secretary of Transportation for Governor King.
Yeah.
And Barry Locke got caught doing deals for friends, giving them money and state contracts that didn't exist that they got paid for, and the work wasn't done. And so Dukakis, in the debate, sets King up and talks about his appointments. And of course, the governor, I have made some wonderful appointments, and he lets him finish. And then Dukakis looks at Governor King and says, Governor, that's nice of you to say all that, but your Secretary of Transportation is not behind his desk tonight. He's behind bars. Boom. Poor King was nothing. But I mean, I remember that. But that's the one time, that somebody got caught. And it's you say to yourself, where does it end? And now you kind of knew when the first story came out about them putting in overtime that didn't exist, that this was just the tip of the iceberg. There's more to come.
Oh yeah.
And the Globe is going through every single thing they can find.
I hope they find it.
Oh yeah.
I hope they find it.
And the bottom line is, at this stage of my life, I was thinking about it. I have a lot of great friends of mine who are state troopers, and I'm sure that in the state police rank and file, there are some great, honest,
Yep.
straightforward police officers who wouldn't take a penny. You know, if they saw it on the street, they'd put it in the collection box someplace. And so I have to say that because it's true.
It is.
But at the same time, I would imagine being a trooper and knowing what you did and just waiting for the shoe to drop. It's got to be real scary. You know, it's got to be real scary. But it's sad. It's sad because it doesn't begin and end with them. And it goes back to the government is so big that one governor and one lieutenant governor and 160 members of the House and 40 senators can't run it. It is so huge. It is growing so big and expanded that they can't control it.
I forget where he heard this, but somebody once said, it's a cold machine. It doesn't matter how nice and human the individual person is. It's so big, it's a cold machine.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, you know, I had the occasion to spend some time at the registry as a consultant to the then Registrar Mackey. And some of the things that went on in there were just scary. I mean, just, I would drive back to Ware on a Tuesday. I used to go every Tuesday. And I would drive back on Tuesday, and I'd say, wow. And then the next week I'd meet with the governor, and I'd say, Governor, let me tell you a story. You know, and he used to say to me, don't tell me anything about the registry. Don't tell me another one of those stories. See if you can fix it. You know. And it was sad. I mean, I walked in there, and there was the registrar's office was on the second floor. Nashua Street's gone, the building's gone, but it was on the second floor, room 8. But before you got to the registrar's office, which was a big, huge office at the back corner of the building, there was an outer office, and there was 4 people in that office, 4 women, that were executive secretaries to the registrar. But before you got to that office, there was an outside office where there were 8 women who worked in that office. So you come in to see the registrar, and you'd walk in, and there's the 8 ladies, and one of them would get up and say, can I help you? Yes, I'm here for a meeting with the registrar. Does he know you're coming? No, I'm going to surprise him. Yes, he does. Who shall I say is calling? Mr. Vaughn. And she'd say, okay, just a minute. She'd go back to her desk, and she'd hang up her phone, and a lady would come out of that little next office. Mr. Vaughn, the registrar said he'll see you in a few minutes. Would you like a cup of coffee? No, I'm all set. And then finally, she would come out and say, Mr. Vaughn, come here. And you'd walk around the counter, and you'd go through and you'd get in to see Alan. And I said, Mackey, I said, what do you got 12? What do those 12 people do all day? He said, nothing. You know, not much. You know, I said, what are they there for? Well, he says, you want me to start? Which one do you want to talk about first? Well, the first lady on the first desk in the right, she was sent here by Rep. such and such when he lost. That was his executive secretary. And then the one on the other side is Senator such and such's daughter. Oh, okay. And the one over there is Representative Smith's cousin. And this one over here was sent over because they had a cutback on some of the staffs over at the House, and they needed to move some people. And every one of them was sent there as a political person. And he says, and now, what do I do? I'm going to go fire them, and I got 2 senators and 6 reps on the phone. He says, that they were here when I got here, and they're going to be here when I leave. He says, because if I don't, I'll lose my job. Well, that's the mentality.
Yeah.
And as long as that's the mentality, and I looked at him, and he said, Dick, it's not fun. I don't like it. I wish it would change. He says, I do have a plan. And he opens his drawer, and he shows me the plan. That generally speaking, about 20% of the people, through death, sickness, moving, or retirement, leave every year. So he says, my plan is, as each one leaves, I'm not going to replace them. And he says, hopefully, he says, I won't live long enough because he says it's at least 12 years and my term is 4 years. So he said, and if Dukakis loses, I'm out anyway. So he said, I won't live long enough, but if I did, I could probably cut the staff down to 2 people, which I need. And I can take that front office and open it up and make it we'll put old number plates up. People like to look at some of the old antique plates we have. And he said, I'll make it a nice little receiving area, but I'll have 2 people, because that's what we really need. You know, and he said, but he says, I can't change it. I have to wait. And if one of them leaves, I just don't replace them. You know, and he says, and they got to listen to the union. Well, you better replace that person. So he says, I can't do that. So here's how I got to handle that. The minute that happens, I'm going to move the desk out of there so that it'll look like there was never anybody there anyway.
Brilliant.
You know, but he said, what else? And when you think about that, that's exactly the whole system.
It is.
It's the system. And that's how they all, you see, I always tell people, I was talking with a great friend of mine, if you run as a Democrat or a Republican, if you're running for president, I needed 3,700 signatures. But I ran on the bicentennial ticket in 1776. Well, if you ran as anything but a Democrat or Republican, you needed 37,000 signatures. So it goes back to this Dickism. The ins protect the ins.
Yep.
And the ins don't want the outs in.
That's right.
Okay? So the people who are in office protect one another. And they make the laws so nobody else can get in
Of course.
because they like their jobs.
Yeah.
And that doesn't matter whether they're Democrats, Republicans, they all protect each other.
Yeah.
They get on the floor down there and yell and scream at each other and do sound bites, but then they go out and drink together after the session. And the ins protect the ins, and they don't want the outs in.
Of course. Does this shock you?
No.
No, I know it doesn't shock
But the
you.
average voter doesn't understand it.
They don't. Yes, that is true.
They don't know what's going on, really, because the average person has never run for office, so they don't realize that there's discrimination.
How can the average person? The average person is too busy scraping together a
Yeah,
living,
yeah.
thinking about, will I be able to go to the Cape this year?
Yeah. Can I get my weekend at the Cape?
Can I get my weekend in the Cape?
And then, do I have to go over the bridge that now down to 1 lane? And,
Yeah.
you know,
The logistics of life just interfere with it. And while everybody's not looking,
Yep.
it happens. Government happens.
yeah, yep. And is there an end? You know, and then you see what's going on in Washington now, and you see members of the House and Senate not going to run. I at one point thought, gee, I'd like to get appointed. Well, I'm not so sure. I'd want to be appointed because I might be on Twitter tonight, or Twitter or whatever, Twitter tonight. You know, I'm amazed that he can get anybody to take a job. You know,
Well,
because no one's eliminated from his wrath. I mean, even the Attorney General, his Secretary of State, he's already fired one of them. You know, Nikki Haley is getting clobbered, and you say to yourself, well, why would you take a job with the Trump administration? And then you get the Hannity situation that's now escalated. Now the word is, I read an article today in the Times that he and Hannity talk twice a day. They discuss what's going to be talked about on the show tonight. That Hannity is one of his best advisors, almost to the point where he doesn't need Kelly anymore. You know, I mean, interesting. And I'm saying to myself, whoa, you know, whoa. And then Hannity, we find out, Cohen says he's one of my clients. Hannity says, no, I was never a client. I never paid him. I just called him once in a while for advice, you know.
Well, if there is an invoice, he was a client.
Yeah,
Hannity claims there's no invoice.
no invoices, you know.
We'll see.
We'll see. But it doesn't matter. You know, even Dershowitz said to him, but you should have said, before you go on your program and rail and beat up everybody over Attorney Cohen, you should have said you have a relationship with him.
Yeah, that would have been the
You
smart
should have admitted that you.
Full
and-
disclosure, I
Yeah.
have consulted.
Yeah, I
you
have
don't
consulted.
Have to say as client. Say
No,
I consulted.
I haven't consulted and had conversations with Attorney Cohen.
Yeah.
So I know him. I know him. You know, and Hannity got in Dershowitz's face. Well, wait a minute. What about my own privacy? And Dershowitz says, but you're a public figure. You're on
What
television.
the heck, Hannity?
You're on television.
You investigate how many people?
Yeah, you're on television and you're blasting somebody and you're accusing the media and you're saying things that you say, and yet we find out that you know the guy, you've worked with him, you've consulted with him. You should have at least said that. He said, yeah, but what about my personal privacy? I'm entitled to my own privacy. And Dershowitz says, not in your position. And so it just doesn't end. And I say, I mean, I'm intrigued because I'm an old political hack that's watched it happen, that's been a consultant to various campaigns, that have run campaigns for people, and I enjoy the game. I enjoy the politic of it. And I've been rewarded. I had special appointments, and I had, low number plates and all the other stuff that goes with it. And I gave out low numbers. My hand is up. I took care of friends. I cleaned house. I gave I plates out. I gave I-5 to this guy and I-3 to that guy and Z7 to a good friend of mine. I admit it. But the thing is, and I said to Frank Phillips from the old Boston Herald, he called me up, was ranting and raving that I was giving out low number plates to friends. And I asked him, I said, well, Frank, do you ever have any parties at your house? Oh, we have a big Christmas party. Do you invite your enemies or your friends? Well, I invite all my friends. Well, then who would I give plates to? I'm going to call up some guy that hates me and offer him, a 2-number plate? What are you kidding? We saved those for friends of ours, And he couldn't believe I was that honest. But the point is, and my hand is up, folks. So, but my point is, the good news about those, you have to pay for those.
Yeah.
And the state makes a fortune on low numbers.
yeah.
Because they're $80 a piece, and you have to do them every year, et cetera, et cetera. So the good news is they're cash cows. But the point I'm making is that you say to yourself, yeah, this fellow in Washington, how would, if he calls up, hi, this is President Trump, I'd like you to come to work for me. Really? I'm all set.
Though, that I would say a really important person who had already accomplished much and in a long career would say no. But I would say there's millions of people in Washington who would say, okay, it's a chance.
Yeah.
And in 4 or 5 weeks, maybe he does kick me out.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be on TV for 2 or 3 weeks. Maybe
Yeah.
I can score another job.
Yeah, I'll get on some board of directors someplace.
Okay, so I can see where he will have no problem.
Oh, I'm sure he won't.
And what if one of them hits well and
Yeah.
they do develop a relationship?
Well, the bottom line is do what he tells you, and
Yeah.
you'll be golden.
Yeah.
Go in with the fact that you don't have anything to say.
Yeah.
It's what he wants. And if you go in with that position, it's what he wants, and don't disagree with him, you're going to be fine.
But every functionary, their role is to execute policy, not to make it.
That's right.
And all too many of them think they're making policy.
Well, that's the problem.
Yeah.
That's
So
the
so is Trump the smartest guy to hold office or the dumbest? We don't know yet. But I mean, look at how many
Look,
administrators.
the average person, all right, having done what he's done so far, would be out of office. Would have been forced to resign or step aside.
Which basically says he's not the average person.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So he has positioned himself, and I give him credit. He's positioned himself as untouchable,
Yeah.
and he can do what he wants. He's the president.
I like to point out one thing. Mueller may still get him. I didn't think Mueller would get him before, but I think he still may get him. But it will not be for collusion with Russia, because he's got nothing. And because if he did have that, he wouldn't be talking to Stormy.
No.
He wouldn't be in Cohen's office.
No, he wouldn't.
So that boat has sailed.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like the Lewinsky thing.
Well, I think everybody agrees that Russia influenced the election. No one's arguing they didn't.
Russia tried to influence
Yeah.
the Russians. There's no proof that Russia did.
Russians did.
Russians did.
Right.
And these guys were a little, the Russian state may occasionally use them, but they're not, they're kind of loose cannons.
Well,
And they're none of them, and the reason why a lot of them, I think, were indicted is because he knows he can't bring them over here.
that's right.
So he doesn't have to worry about
Doesn't
them.
worry about it. Well, Richard, once again, it was wonderful.
It was.
It's delightful to see you, and we'll look forward to next month because one of the things that's going on, we'll never run out of things to talk about as long as we have a government.
And that's true. And is the government going to stop the May snowstorm? That's what I want
That's
to
the
know.
one to go. There you are, folks, and other conversations with.